It is finally time for me to jump into the world of movies, starting with Martin Scorsese's favorite franchise of all time, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, unlike dear old Martin, I tend to enjoy the properties put out by our mouse overlord, and Shang Chi was no exception. No, this does not mean the movie didn't have a multitude of flaws, but the overall product put out was both entertaining and intriguing. Before giving my non-spoiler thoughts on the things this movie succeeded and fell short in, I'd like to ask you guys to like and subscribe. The content on this channel may not pertain to you now, but I plan to cover most MCU content in the future. Alright, enough of the self-promotion, on to the largest positive of this movie. In my opinion, the well, at least the first half of the combat. It has been years since my childhood of watching Jackie Chan movie after Jackie Chan movie, but Shang-Chi and Simu Liu's performance hit me over the head with nostalgia. The action set pieces through the first bits of this movie are just excellently choreographed, with few cuts leading some of the best fight sequences in all of Marvel. You a fan of the Winter Soldier fights? Yeah, you'll like at least part of this movie. Now, this level of fight quality does not continue all the way through, as towards the back half of the film, things become a little less grounded in the beat ass and take names department, leading to some CGI eye cancer, especially in the climax. There were some moments where my vision glazed over because I couldn't tell what was happening in the midst of Kevin Feige throwing millions of dollars at the screen.
What are you doing? Huel! Hey, quit screwing around! We are here to do a job, not channel Scrooge McDuck. You hearing me?
I hear you.
Trying to one-up the first half's fights. It's not bad or offending, really just typical Marvel. Just slightly disappointing after the dynamic and engaging set pieces from earlier. Something that worried me from the trailers and beginning of the movie was how comedy and more specifically Awkwafina's character were going to be implemented. I'm happy to inform you that it does not distract or take away from important moments and is actually funny in a good amount of parts. A certain character that is loosely connected does appear and delivers some decently funny moments. I've always had an issue with Marvel dropping jokes at the wrong times or quippy one-liners from everybody. Overall, the movie is pretty tactful with its use of humor. In terms of pacing, Shang-Chi isn't anything special or horrendous. It keeps your eyes on the screen for the most part, with a lull in the middle of the movie where you get exposition dumped, but besides that, it moves along quite nicely. In relation to plot, I have one of my biggest positives in that it is its own movie. After watching the Marvel shows, I was kind of getting sick of everything having to be super connected, and this being almost completely disconnected was quite refreshing. Don't worry, there's still a good amount of MCU connections, but the main story is that of its own. Think Thor Ragnarok. Another positive I have is the characters and the cast. Almost every character is interesting and has something to contribute. Oddly, our protagonist Shang-Chi gets the least of the writer's attention. He was more portrayed as the straight man for the others to bounce off of, which is fine, but in future films, I think they should really crank up the charisma meter just a bit. As I said earlier, Awkwafina was not only enjoyable on screen, but actually useful somewhat like Ned in Spider-Man. I definitely can get behind the trend of friends being contributors without it having to involve actually fighting. The absolute standout of the movie would be Tony Leung as Shang-Chi's father. He imparted such emotion into the scenes he was displaying a great range, and has become one of the few good villains in Marvel. There's another main character who, to avoid spoilers, I won't mention, that is very similar to Shang-Chi, but it feels like they needed a character arc that just wasn't there. This person was both interesting and fun to watch, but they did not give the development that I thought they really deserved. I hope like in sequel movies they can expand more upon this person. Overall, I give Marvel's Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings 7.5 BMW sponsorships out of 10. Now, I can't really talk about anything else without spoiling some stuff, so go to the theaters and give it a watch. Then come back and finish this video, because this YouTube stuff ain't easy and I'm greedy for views. So this is your spoiler warning. Be warned, if you keep on listening, that's your own fault. To kick off spoilers, let's discuss hats off to Marvel for continuing to branch into weirder stuff, but the whole Dragon Cthulhu thing seems slightly out of place, especially with the main conflict of this film being between family. Now, I enjoyed the monster fight, and the bigger problem I had was with the generic mini Cthulhu demons. Instead of finding another way to incorporate the martial arts that was so fun to watch at the beginning of the movie, they just went with people poking sticks at flying squid. There's nothing interesting to balance out the fight between Shang-Chi and the Mandarin, followed by the dragon and demon. Really, really would have enjoyed them looping back to the hook of this movie and having part of the climax be a barely cut martial arts fight. Another thing that was pretty gimmicky was Katie, Awkwafina's character, learning to shoot a bow in one day, then saving everyone. I think that moment should have incorporated the car and her driving skill in some way. Hell, her tying some arrows to the bumper and ramping it off the dragon would have made more narrative sense than her just becoming an archer out of nowhere. Besides those things, the climax was pretty fun, especially the father-son fight. One of the more disappointing things was the sister's character arc, or lack thereof. I thought she should have held some sort of grudge against Shang Chi for longer than 2 minutes, or maybe ended up working twice as hard for their dad since she never got attention. She felt underutilized, and I think if they'd portrayed her as a bad guy on the dad's side until the final fight where she teams up with Shang-Chi because she realizes her dad hasn't treated her well, and it would have helped add depth to the narrative. Trevor, the fake Mandarin, and Wong, Doctor Strange's homie, are really the only MCU connections in the film and are implemented pretty well. Some may blame the drop off in the middle on the appearance of Trevor, but I don't think that's the case. The final thing I want to end off on and reiterate is heaping more praise onto Tony Leung for delivering another good MCU villain. Whether it was seen with his wife or murdering mobsters with little Shang watching, he killed it. Marvel, please promote whoever helped coordinate and choreograph the fight scenes of the first half, and have more interesting action set pieces in future MCU installments. More CGI does not equal better. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy these more scripted, highly edited videos. It takes more time, so additional support will encourage me to do more. Thanks for watching, see ya.